Welcome, and you're watching Consent to the Govern with Eric Saggy Balls Sullivan and Tommy the Beanbag Patterman. The Ballsack Brothers.
At least the first time you've introduced us is freaking on point.
Balls.
On point.
Balls and Johnson.
Balls and wieners.
Balls and wieners.
All day.
All right.
I don't know why dudes have like this fascination with fucking talking about dicks and farts.
Dicks and farts and drawing dicks and everything.
Yeah. Whatever.
Nate was always typically the butt of that one, when it'd snow outside and there'd be a little bit of snow dust on the table, and you'd draw a big dick and balls and go into Nate's head.
Yep.
Maybe a little bit of a little stream coming out and hitting him in the face.
Yeah. Then you'd have to write Nate because you're not that great of an artist.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily look like Nate.
No, we better make sure everybody knows that's
everybody
Nate.
knows it's Nate.
Yeah, write his name with an arrow pointing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the days. Oh, to be young again.
Yeah. You're still drawing dicks everywhere. Don't lie to
me. Oh, in construction, that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Sometimes you take things off, we were doing demo, and you see random stuff, like, especially the older the house gets, everybody's like, oh, do you ever find any money? No, nobody ever puts any money behind their wall. It's dumb. So,
like, what happens when your house burns down?
I didn't think about that. We got a pile of like silver at the ground. I don't know. So we always see stupid stuff, but we always put back stupid stuff. You gotta write stupid things like, you drill a hole in the wrong spot and it ends up getting covered up and stuff. You just write glory hole there.
Yeah.
Or, something, anything. So, but yeah.
You should hide you should hide dildos.
Dude,
talk about finding dildos in random and funny places. Imagine just demoing a house and all of a sudden, whoa!
Oh man, I have seen some stuff moving an end table or two in a bedroom in order to be able to, do some flooring. And
no, but you actually gotta hide it in a wall, and it's gotta sit there for like 30 years, and then they go to like
just wipe the dust off it.
Yeah. Honey, look, I found a butt plug.
It's ceramic from the 20s. It was personally engraved by the artist.
Only slightly used.
Oh, it's tainted.
Tainted.
All right.
But
let's get serious here. Now that we're done talking about the undercarriage of random folk.
Random folk. That sounds like it could be a book about the pioneer the undercarriage of random folk.
Yeah. Yikes.
Anyway,
I'm not interested in reading that bit of literature.
Anyways, we got to get down to business.
Brass tacks.
Talk about reality and how it's changing.
As we know it. Yes.
Yep. I mean, even top scientists and theorists, that are very intelligent people, much more intelligent than I.
Academics.
Not necessarily academics.
Oh, okay, good, because they're dumb.
Yeah, they are. Okay, anyways,
yes.
They're with a new test coming out, with CERN and whatnot on this muon particle, which is just a little bit bigger than the electron, and it doesn't necessarily rotate around the nucleus, but it's part of the atom. It exists. It only exists actually for like 2.2 microseconds, and then it's gone. They don't know where the hell it goes, and they're able to actually isolate it and keep it alive for longer, basically, and they're finding out, they're researching the effects it has on other particles, on its own self, but basically the field that's around it, the magnetic field that lives around it, or whatever bonding field that lives around it, and it's changing basically the theories of the universe. And so I mean, just something like that doesn't sound like a very big deal to most people, but when you have, for the last 50 to 70 years plus, let's say even more than that, there's always been a somewhat of a theory and idea on the universe, and they've had scientific experiments, or at least got down to such a small level or a micro level that they could come up with a solid sound theory on what they could observe. And now with the advancement of you know of everything like CERN, but even more so like quantum computing too, you're starting to see they're able to analyze the ether. They're able to analyze the space that we weren't able to see before. Now we can analyze the effects that a particle has on another particle, or in its own environment. And we won't even get into quantum theory or quantum computing, because that is,
Right.
I mean, because then you get into like entanglement and all that crazy shit.
Yeah.
That just completely blows my mind. Um,
Yeah.
but what
Yeah.
it actually does, I mean, that's a problem with so many people
Newtonian physics.
not completely understanding what quantum computing is, and not um, understanding how basic it is. It's not, it's not like this. It's not a fucking computer, man. I mean, it's basically a gigantic logic gate.
Yeah, so computers are ones and zeros, it's digital, right? So that's why you have pixels. That's why it's all square, like Tom's thing behind him. It's all square because you have a one and a zero. It's very rudimentary. It's off or it's on, and that's all digital is. It's off or it's on.
Well,
Quantum is more analog, definitely more analog. It's more like the vacuum tube, right?
well, this is the thing. We're analyzing the the space and time, of where it's going, but also, well, it's also, we uh, we're able to interact with it through microwaves, so through like an analog signal, anyways.
Mhm.
But also, it's just like a big logic gate, though.
Yeah.
We're able to analyze it at the very end, and at the very end, that's when we can actually. I don't know if we're able to modify it or just view it on the
Right.
other
Well,
side.
yeah,
But
not to get into the quantum
the
stuff.
thing is,
Yeah.
it's just one giant logic gate. It's if
Right.
this or this. I mean, so it's not just one bit traveling; it's both bits traveling. And then if you can shoot,
Right.
excuse me, multiple bits or multiple particles. I mean, what we're using there? We're using not electrons. We're using photons.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if you could send multiple, you know, particles or multiple bits or qubits through, they have the ability to be either or. And
Yeah, a
then,
wave or a particle at any given time. Yeah.
but
Yep.
we're still only to get, at this point, we're only able to get one output. Or,
Right.
at one time, we're not.
Right.
We're not able to do this if this and this or this and this nor
Right.
this and this and
Well,
so we can
we
actually
kind of
the
are. We're
point
just
of
not
modern
able
day
to.
computing as we know it,
Right.
utilizing the quantum computing theories.
Right. So we're actually able to. We just don't know how to do it yet. So when they
Yeah.
find out, that's what I was going to talk. So I hadn't heard about this muon particle at all until Tom just brought it up in the little pre-show thing that he wanted to talk about it. And the cool thing about the way he was explaining it is the way science has worked. Everybody thinks, oh, well, science knows this. Well, no. I mean, we talked in the last episode between you and I about science, thinking that 98% of our, DNA was junk DNA. Now we can bring that over to this and say that, oh, well, everything that wasn't something we could see as far as electron, proton, neutron, that's just dark matter. Well, no, now there's this other particle, right? Now there's this other thing, and this is still just in the concept of particle physics. This is just Newtonian idea, Einsteinian idea of physics, right? So you're talking about this muon particle as being able to um, react to different situations that the scientists are putting it under, and being to extend its life long enough to observe how it's reacting, either broken or beat up in another spot, but not necessarily in its natural state,
Mhm.
right? Same goes for quantum, right? So the idea behind quantum is we can get all of those other things. It just depends on who's viewing it, right? So they
Mhm.
noticed that if the guy was sick, it was actually something that happened when they were creating quantum computers, or when they were working on it, was if the guy was sick that was supposed to be there at that station monitoring that stuff all the time, all of a sudden everything went awry when a new person entered, right? So then they started studying, like, oh wait, we might be getting variance just on this guy's mood. You know, this
Mm.
guy that's always in there, just on his mood, we could be getting weird things. So they actually had to start making a questionnaire that was, how you feeling today? Rate of 1 to 10. Did you get in a fight
Yeah,
with
that
a
could
wife
have an
last night?
effect on that. I mean,
Yeah,
that's why they got
it's
to
really weird.
basically that environment has to be so clear and clean that where the
So
where the photon is. That's why they put it in the vacuum and all that business. But I can totally see that, man, and that's why
yeah,
I mean, even now with quantum computing, just with maybe a handful of qubits, if they can even, I'm not even sure if they're even able to perform solid
right.
equations yet with the multiple different qubits coming through on the channels there.
They ask a
I haven't
question
looked.
and they get multiple answers. It's all it is they're asking a question and they're giving it. I
And
guess
they're not even
the
per
mind
se asking a
understanding.
question. They're just sending, they want this and they're expecting this result, and
Right.
when they view it,
Yeah.
and which sets it in play, which or, which you know sets it in stone, I should say.
Which is
Um
kind of equatable to remote viewing, right?
mhm.
So they're basically giving a target and they're going, okay, let us see what you got.
And but it's only 80% of the time though. They still
Right.
20%. It's still like, what the fuck? I
It's
didn't
kind of like
expect that to
remote
happen.
viewing.
Mhm.
you know?
Um, but that leads me to just touch a small base on like the false information when it comes to quantum computing, like
Right.
the
Right.
quantum, like with James Ward shit, and all the other people,
Charlie Ward.
Charlie Ward,
Oh,
spewing all this shit about
quantum financial
it's
system.
like, guys, that's not at all where quantum computing is at all. I mean,
Right.
I don't care how many uncles you have, in the military, the CIA, that are feeding you information. You know, the quantum computing that is exposed to us that we know about is like I said, it's really basic.
Right. So and that's the thing is that the military always comes out with stuff and says, "Oh, well, we have this." 20 years after they've been using it, right?
Mhm.
So which means who the hell knows? We don't know jack. And if somebody's out there saying, "Oh yeah, there's a quantum computer now right now that they're running AI through to create all of us into some random thing and it's deciding every bit of our lives as if it was God."
They're
Sure.
the
I
problem
mean,
is they're just
yeah,
they're
I guess.
they're improperly mashing together this technology that is nowhere close,
Hmm.
because we
But even if it was, right? Let's just
I
say
would
it
I
was.
would understand, but let's keep quantum computing out of there. Let's look at artificial intelligence as more like just basic machine learning. Let's not call it true
Right,
AI. But
right.
I am a firm believer in, like, remember when we used to talk about the Jade Helm project and whatnot, and the
Oh
collection of
yeah,
data on all the citizens, and
social
you know,
engineering. Yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
mean, that exists. That's
yeah.
totally there. It's not this these here computers, they don't have no soul. So I mean,
Right,
there's no AI there. There's no ultimate self-realization, which is
right.
probably a good thing. I mean, otherwise
Well,
you
yeah.
get
So,
Skynet
so
shit going
this
on.
is this is an interesting thing that I was going to get into with this like muon particle, right? So you're going to take this, whatever they're going to use, right? This one particle, and you're going to spin it around at high velocity, and then you're going to break it apart to see how it reacts, right? And you're going to do that in a way to be like, oh, okay, we only got nanoseconds worth of data out of that. All right, let's do it again and see if we can extend that. And they're just running tests, right? But the funny thing is, they're trying to figure out how all of this stuff works in a natural state, right? Because that's what science is. We're trying to understand our surroundings in the natural state. We're not trying to create artificial worlds. Well, maybe some more, but anyway, we're not trying to create this artificial world that has nothing to do with us. We're trying to figure us out, right? So when you take something out of that into an artificial state to try and figure out how it reacts in an artificial state, what does that do? I mean, it's the same idea behind the quantum computer, right? Where you have to pull a vacuum out and it's got to be at absolute zero so there's no influence of heat or contaminated particles in there. It's the cleanest, like you said, the cleanest thing you can possibly get your reaction out of, because those things will influence things, right? So I can see that for a computer, right, being a thing with this muon particle. And like you were saying before, trying to figure out the rest of what we used to call the God particle,
Mhm.
which is dark matter and everything else. the stuff that glues the universe together. They were trying to find that, and they find
Well,
this other new particle, the muon,
it's
right?
it's
So
the ether. It's the ether. Like
exactly. It's the ether. It's one of many things where we're like, just all we're seeing is we're not seeing, maybe they're seeing a thing happen, right? Like a little particle of it, and they're going to call it the muon particle, but they're not seeing, like, they're going to see how things react to it. And I think you said that earlier,
Hmm.
how other things are reacting differently from the last time they blew up a little particle of whatever to find this guy. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So all I'm saying is that you know, as far as science is concerned, all we do is we try to recreate something, see how it reacts and acts, count how many times it does it, and then go, well, that's a good theory, and try to expound on it and inject other things
Now
into it,
though,
right? Yeah,
we're not paying as much attention to the actual particle itself. Though we're paying attention to the
to the
effect,
reaction.
the
Yeah,
the,
the
the
effect.
field that surrounds it, and that's is that the Bozeman-Hines theory? Is that what it is?
Mm.
When it comes to uh, the basically the ether that
Oh,
the glue of the
I think
universe there.
I think you're
Um,
right. Yeah.
um, that we've really started going down that rabbit hole in science, and I think, well, I mean,
Mhm.
that's where the whole idea between the with the quantum computing came about.
Right.
Quantum physics and quantum theory. I mean, that's been around for a long fucking time.
Mhm.
But with the quantum computing, it was just we just kept making things that much smaller and that much smaller, and all of a sudden, there's a little switch and there's an electron, and all of a sudden this electron, oh, it's on the other side of that switch, but that switch is off. What the
Right.
fuck? Where did
Yeah.
it go in that time? So we're digging into that ether, we're digging into that
Well, that's
field.
Moore's law.
Yeah.
That's Moore's law. Yeah, you can only make a space for an electron so small, to be able to
Mhm.
measure voltages so small to be able to do that. So you can only make a processor so small, and that's it, right? That's
Well,
a
but that's
lot
that's
of
the thing. We
Bitcoin and
finally got to
crypto
the point where
processors
we
and power.
started
We've hit it.
questioning about
16 nanometers.
instead of just being like, well, it just got through to the other side. We're going, well, let's analyze, see what the heck this
Right.
thing's doing before it gets to the other side. And then when we
Right.
started to do that, we were like, holy shit, this thing is like literally disappearing and reappearing on the other side.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, what in the actual fuck is happening here? And
So
that's
that's the discovery of teleportation, right? Or at least what we think, because it just teleported onto the other side of this thing,
But
you
then,
know?
yeah, but then, like I said, then you all of a sudden involve entanglement, where you can have
Mhm.
a similar, basically an entangled qubit that could be time and distance does not fucking matter
Mhm.
at this point. If a change happens on this qubit, a change happens on that entangled qubit, which is just
Right.
like,
Mhm.
what the fuck? And how do you entangle them? You know?
How do you detangle them?
I mean,
Yeah.
dude,
So
like this is
so
intense.
uh,
Which kind of brings me into this next
ooh,
this next topic we
real
want.
quick, real quick. If anybody wants to get like way balls deep into physics, with an outlier's perspective, um, Nassim Harriman is by far one of the best people in physics, because he wasn't classically trained, and he just did all of this himself. He was a self-taught dude, but he is actually responsible for a lot of the breakthroughs in
You
this
look him
stuff.
up in the dictionary, it's like self-taught dude.
Well, I would hope that was what it says, but it won't. No, he's got a lot of talks on stuff. I would love to have Nassim Harriman on, because
Mm.
he's so, because he was self-taught and he wasn't, raised by the academic, and he's not after the same thing as a lot of the academics are, which is fame and tenure and all that stuff. He's after, the truth, which is really cool to see a dude take it to that level in physics, where he's blowing apart people, even all the way up to, homeboy in the wheelchair.
Oh,
So he's blowing apart, freaking that crap bags theories, and I'm questioning Einstein and stuff. So anyway, if anybody's interested in all that quantum theory, particle physics, string theory, anything like that, Nassim Harriman's the bomb. Get into it.
oh, he gets into
Yeah.
string theory too?
Yeah, so he really does a good example. Like, one of my favorite talks he did was one of his first talks, where he's talking about, like, he brings up an actual physics book, like, so it's Physics 101 textbook, right? And it's talking about the ever expanding universe, and it uses this idea, if you glue coins to a balloon, and then you blow the balloon up, all of those coins separate. They're getting farther and farther apart. And it had an illustration of this crudely drawn in this physics book. And he brings this up, and everybody's laughing at him because he's bringing up Physics 101 book, and he's self-taught, right? And he's sitting there, and there's all of these, laureates in the room. And he puts this picture up of this with the whole explanation, and he explains it all, and they've all seen it 1,000 times, and they've taught it in classes and all that jazz. And then all of a sudden, he goes, "Who's that guy?" And he's pointing to the guy blowing it up.
Yeah.
And he goes, and he's like, "That's your guys' theory on Big Bang, is that there's a guy there. So you telling me that God did the Big Bang, and this guy blowing the balloon up is God, or who is this? Explain this. What's your explanation, and what's your equation for this guy?" That's what you need to figure out. And that's why you need to figure it out. And everybody just gobsmacked, jaws dropped, shut the fuck up about this guy forever. Like, he had just smacked him in the face. Like, okay, so you believe in God, or are you going to explain this guy blowing up the fucking balloon, or what?
Well, that's
So
part
cool
of the
dude.
problem.
Yeah.
That's why I do like Cliff High's
Mhm.
theory explanation of the little bloop particle.
Yeah, instead of the Big Bang, it makes sense. I mean, who's to fucking know, right? So we can't. I, I'm not saying that somebody out there like Nassim Harriman shouldn't go and do their thing, right, and
Mhm.
find out who that guy is, right? We need people like that to find out who that guy is. We need people like Cliff to come up with other outrageous theories about that's a little blue, you know. We need other people like
Well, and
religion to give a
and that
spirituality aspect
that
of it,
that
right?
brings me back around to the CERN stuff and to the muon
Right,
particle and all that business.
right.
Um, I can't remember the scientist's name because I just I have no fucking clue. But anyways,
Dickie McFartstain.
Dickie McFartstain.
That's Dr. Dickie
That's
McFartstain to you.
Dr. Dickie. I didn't spend 12 years in medical school to
For
become
you
a
to call,
stuff.
for you to call me by my Christian name. Who gave
no,
you the right?
one thing, and you and I especially always dog on the younger generations.
Yeah, keep that to yourself. I
Yeah.
love the younger generations. My
Fuck
wife is
you.
very young.
Anyways,
I'm just kidding.
excuse me. They were accrediting a lot of this finding and just the overall motivation to really study this. They're accrediting a lot of the younger scientists. Now, I'm not sure what that age group actually is because I mean these guys could be in their 60s or 70s. I have no idea, but they're saying that the younger generation or these younger scientists coming into this field are more willing to accept the unaccepted, to be like, you know what, yeah, that dickbag said that 60 years ago, but I don't believe it, and I'm gonna try to fucking prove it. And they're
Well, and
headstrong enough
but
to
that
actually go ahead and do it. And they've got, it's dude, it's that sort of science is just this. I mean, science in general, but all of this is like professional skateboarding and professional dirt bike riding and snowmobiling. Every 5 years, they're doing shit that you have no. You're like, what the fuck? It's like I'll jump a sled 40 feet. Not next thing you know, they're doing like 8 backflips. And
right.
baking a cake at the same time.
So
Same
anybody
with.
who says science is settled doesn't understand the idea of the scientific method. You can eat dicks. Like, there is no chance in the world you could come up to me and tell me, and I think this is where we're going to in the next part of this conversation, is how the world will be, smacked in the face by something, and it happens all the time, right? If Galileo got locked up because he was saying that the Earth revolves around the sun instead of vice versa, right? The sun revolving around the Earth. Who's to say that we don't find out in the next 4 months that, oh shit, actually the sun does revolve around us, and who would know? You know what I mean? Like, you don't go to the sun. It's all relative, right? Like, you're not in space. I mean, I understand the idea of celestial bodies and this gravity matrix and everything else, time space continuum. I'm not going to say I fully understand that shit, because I don't. I mean, I didn't even graduate college, but I can see that, yes, math works out on paper and it's a theory, right? And I hope you got a tie to go with that theory, because you're not going to be able to, like, until we get into a UFO and buzz around and figure it out, who gives a shit what happens in the vacuum of space? It's all relative. So if something is moving at a million miles an hour, the only thing that tells you it's moving at a million miles an hour is when something's going a million and one next to it. You know
Mhm,
what I mean? Like everything is all relative. It's like currencies. If something lost currency, no, it didn't. As long as you didn't sell it, it's right there.
mhm.
You know what I mean? It's just a time, and and
Well,
and granted, that's why they're figuring it out. But yes, science is always should be questioned. It should always be, you know, um, fucked with. That's what it's for. You know.
we should always be
Anyway.
digging deeper and thinking of, thinking the unthinkable, expecting the unexpected, like,
Mhm.
you know, looking at our reality and going like, this might not be all there is. I mean, a
Right.
lot of these people, a lot of scientific research areas
Mhm.
don't look into the possibility or the idea of alternate realities.
Mhm.
A lot of it's just like, this is what we have right here. This is what I can
Mhm.
see. Well, let's think that, let's look at what you can't see. Let's start looking for
Right.
that.
Right. Like we discussed with, the guy having a bad night and then he comes in the next day with the quantum, deal. They all of a sudden they find out that this guy's mood impacts something, right? So what if your mood when you wake up in the morning impacts your entire day? Well, we already know that, right?
Mhm.
You already have bullshits like that documentary, The Secret, where it's like, if you imagine money in your mailbox, the money will show up magically in your mailbox. No,
No,
but I do no,
it's not the
but
way it
I
works, man.
no, but I do agree about the law of attraction, and everything that's on the internet. The majority of it is bunk, and there's I say this to everybody. A lot of people say it's 20% truth mixed with 80% freaking, lies. And I beg to differ because there is one number that always works out and it works out in beauty and everything else. Your guitar's behind you, 6832, 1.618, whatever it is, it's phi, right? And I would say 32% of the shit that's on the internet is probably true because that's just the way it always works out. But not to quantify reality, but I do believe that we are capable of creating our own reality, and not just for ourselves, but as a unit. Like you were talking about the Schumann resonance, right?
Mhm.
Like this idea of having a vibration that works not just in, that we don't know where it comes from, it's just there, and it's can be
Dude, that's
quantifiably detected and
that's
monitored.
universe, man.
Yeah.
Universe is
Yep.
going like
Yep.
this.
Yep.
I mean, that's
Yep.
why, that's why music has such a big impact on people. That's why,
Hmm.
changing the uh the frequency of a natural A has such an impact
Right.
on
Right.
people. Um that's why um a lot of this music is engineered, and I just want I'll probably touch base with this when we talk to Vince a little bit too, but I
Hmm.
wanted to mention, um this is going to get a little out there though. This is like good and evil, but when it comes to
Oh,
uh but like evil, like, I'm not
sing it,
saying
Tommy.
I'm not saying that Nas X guy is the Satan worshiper or anything like that, but it's a little bit fucking weird, considering like where he started and where he's at right now, and now
Mhm.
he's on stage, like, basically riding the devil or whatever, and it's like, really, that really doesn't, represent his music or his image, because he started as a country star, which he wasn't really country, but they knew that they could sell this tune that he had, or that he sang. I don't know if he wrote it or
Mhm.
anything like that. Which is a very, almost sounds a bit chantish, because it'll get stuck in my head for a second, and I'm like, that's a little weird, right? So then he moves from there, from this country star, um, to now he gets more popular because he comes out as gay. Oh, he's a gay
Mhm.
country star. Well, who the fuck cares if he's gay and black? Like, that doesn't matter. Like, he's just a musician, right? Well, then it goes from like that image, and he's got like, I would say, a clean enough image that the majority of his fan base are
Mhm.
kids, that,
Right.
parents allow them to listen to it, because you think Old Town Road, there's nothing there. Um,
He's all right, even if he is a little
yeah,
raw.
yeah, he was a
Yeah,
little,
fine.
he's gay,
He
who
likes
cares?
dudes. Yeah. Yeah.
So who cares? But then, but then comes the next step where all of a sudden you see that performance on stage where he's, grinding up with the devil. It's a little bit
And
different
he's
dance with
selling
the devil.
666 pairs of
Of
off-brand
yeah,
Nikes.
$1,000 fucking Nikes with 666 on them and
I gotta say,
real blood in there. But I just want to put it out there. Doesn't that seem a little Pied Piperish? I mean, doesn't
yeah,
that really seem like that? Where,
yeah.
where it's like you look at a lot of these modern day pop stars and they're fucking Pied Pipers, man. Because
Well,
who's
yeah,
who's buying a lot of their albums? It ain't us. It ain't
no,
people that I know.
no.
They're not buying, Nas X Old Town Road MP3s because they love the song. It's their kids that are listening
Mm.
to this.
So Dave Chappelle said it best, recently about that guy, and he was like, "Man, he got those cut people into country. He got them good because all of a sudden they found out he was black, and they were like, oh hell with that,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he spins it a little bit, and he's black. He ends up being like all black guys are like nodding their head to it. And then they find out he's gay, and they're like, "Oh no, fuck no!" So he had to go. He had to go to the next stage, right? So he had to go to the next one. He's like, "Oh, so what? I'm too, I'm too wholesome. I'm thinking I'm a little too wholesome. Like people are actually listening to me. Well, I might as well grind up the devil. Let's do that now. Well, wait a second. I thought you were. I think it's just to me. It's just
Is
it's
it
the
sheer
newest.
marketing? But at the
I
same
think it
time,
is. I think it's the
what's
new
what's
version of
what's
shock rock, but it's weird that
what's
this
the
version of shock
obsession
rock
with?
is acceptable. Like before, like Marilyn Manson was not acceptable. Like he was being sued and shit.
Mhm.
You know, what freaking NWA was not acceptable. Even REM back in the day when we talked to Stevenson all the time,
Mhm.
and they would play with Black Flag would play with REM, and they were known as a punk band, and they would get protested. So think about it, like REM at one point in time was getting protested, and then
Yeah,
ended up being the number one paid. Yeah,
but
I'm just saying
REM
that.
also wasn't, grinding his booty on the devil. I mean, that was one of
What?
those things where it's like, why is the symbolism and Satanism so important in this day and age? I mean, I know it's always been there, and I know you have, shock rock bands and even rock bands like Motley Crue, they were openly into Satanism,
Right.
or any other bands like Danny Carey, obviously into the occult. I mean, you could just see it with the patterns they use and whatnot.
Well, and that's the weird
But
thing, though.
but
That's the
it's
weird
like,
thing, though, is that I think we're getting to this. I know where you're going with this. I'm sorry to interrupt you. If you want to finish
no,
real
no,
quick,
no,
because
go
I
for
want
it.
to be there with the Danny Carey thing, right? Big
Yeah, no,
fan. No, no.
and I'm not saying the occult stuff is bad. Like I'm just saying that
There we go. Okay, so that's what
it's
I was getting to.
it's
Is
just there. Like, but people perceive that as, oh, that's evil,
well,
bad
just
stuff. It's like, no, that's energies and shit. But
that gets me
this
back to this
this
idea
straight up
of
Satanism stuff though, where it's just like, guys, what's with the, what's
ooh,
with the straight up Satan? Like, why is that there? And it's not in these heavy metal shock rockers. It's
no,
it's in
that's
fucking pop stars doing poppy things, not singing about Satanism. When Slayer has an upside down star,
mhm,
on in the back of their
mhm.
stage, they're singing about raining blood. I mean, they're singing about evil shit, and not evil shit, but
Some pretty dark shit.
some pretty dark shit. Let's
With
just
some
say it
pretty
that way.
dark vibrations with it,
Yeah,
and
and
some
and
pretty dark
it's
cats with some
very
pretty dark
intentional.
tattoos on their
It's
head. I'm
it's very
kidding.
it's very intentional, and
Yeah.
and the majority of bands that we grew up with that were, heavy dark metal bands, black
Right.
metal bands. Um
Yeah. I got a van. I'll put them shits up in
So what kind of leads you need? Guitar leads, vocal leads, guitar leads?
it.
Yeah, I got turntables.
I got turntables. Damn, I haven't thought about that forever. So no, I was gonna say
So no,
about
but
the occult stuff. I
it's
think
just
they're
so really weird with the more of the Satanism stuff,
Mhm.
with pop music.
Right.
Like when did that happen? Like when did that symbolism just start to be like popular within pop music? It wasn't until probably, I mean, it's always been there, but it's at least been a little more subtle.
Well, so I'd say 3 6 Mafia in rap, right, was like one of the first to be like, fuck yeah, down with the devil, you know? I got his tail in my hand.
Yeah.
So, but like the Danny Carey thing, right? The this idea of a cult and you know, even dark occult, and then this straight up like, you know, devil shit, right?
Mhm.
Um, I think a lot of this, and it's just my opinion, has to do with the clouding of spirituality, the confusion, right? So if the devil is the, you know, orator and the be all and end all and the creator of confusion, then that's what the devil would do, right? So you would take something like this healthy look into a spiritual thing, a shape, you know, whether it's the dodecahedron, which could possibly be the shape of life, the flower of life, things like Kabbalah, stuff like that, right? So you take all of those and you cloud those in mysticism and weirdness, and then you just add a tinge of devil in there and train all of these people that are very religious to not get into that, like, oh God, no,
When
oh Lord, that's the devil, oh, but
when in all
yeah,
reality, you should be, you know, getting in tune with the ebb and flow of the universe, with these shapes, with these
right,
energy
right,
patterns and whatnot, because
right,
it be all and end all, or you know, the outcome of being in tune with these energies will actually make you stronger against bad energy.
well, it'll get you, and I think that's the deal, is that it'll get you to your full potential.
Hmm.
So if it's me, you know, reading the tea leaves on this one, I think they're running out of ammunition because of either, you know, where Cliff says strange energies from space, where I would say it's, you know, possibly this age of Aquarius where the vibration is changing within the Earth itself and in its axis and its alignment within these energies from space and things like that, where you're starting to see people break away from Pisces, the school, and stop schooling together in groups and relying on each other to figure out what's right and wrong and get more in tune with themselves. So when you start seeing more of that happen, that means that the powers that be lose power over the masses, right? Because they're being more individualistic. Well, when that happens and they start going, well, that doesn't really work for me, so I'm going to go look and see what that shape. Well, oh wow, I see that shape and it gives me this weird feeling. Maybe I should investigate that more. Not, you know, oh wow, whoops, Slayer used it and they're singing about, you know, freaking some dark shit, right? So I think it used to be sprinkled in, you know, where Britney Spears would have to wear a little skirt and get, you know, little boys and girls to play with their tiddly bits every once
Hmm.
in a while and fuck around like that. Add the little bit of lust in there and all of that stuff and kind of, you know, screw around with people and get them to
Well,
like that instead
started on a
of
very
liking
base.
something that was decent, like something that was gonna get you to realize your full potential as a human, and not just as a human, but as maybe even something that could be, as Genesis would say, created in the image of God, you know? So I'm not saying you can be a God, I'm just saying created in the image because unless you're getting to the highest point of all dimensions, which we will end up getting to, unless you can get to the height of all dimensions and run all dimensions, you ain't ever gonna be God.
Well,
Don't.
and but here's
Yeah.
the problem, though. I mean, if we don't get, you know, if people don't get away from these distractions, i.e., the fucking internet, they are
Mhm.
never going to get to their fullest potential because they're constantly distracted from, you know, just always looking at porn, you know, just destroying,
Oh, yeah.
you know, people's ideas of sex and
Well,
what
just
sex
OnlyFans
should be.
alone. OnlyFans alone is enough, like where it's like, oh, you too can be a porn star. It's like, wait a second. It's like the gig economy for porn stars. And I'm not knocking OnlyFans. If you want to do that, I'm all about pure freedom.
Oh
I am
yeah, pure
all about
freedom. Whatever
freedom.
the fuck you want to
Right.
do, it's up to
Right.
you. But the problem is with this constant attract with these constant distractions and losing the ability
The
to
loosh.
truly feel that to truly have relationships, to truly,
Mhm.
you know, be
Yeah.
in tune with yourself and everything else. Um, yeah,
That's what this lockdown is about.
you're creating a entire generations at this point of fucking debt slave tax paying zombies, man.
So I disagree with that, and here's why. Um, Anytime somebody gets overstimulated with a few things, right? So when you were a kid, you weren't growing up with the stick and wheel, just running down the street with your freaking,
I didn't have a
overalls on.
wheel.
Right? He only had the stick. And then he got the wheel on graduation day from high school. No, what I'm saying is that you were able to graduate with a computer, associate's degree, right? In computer science. You had some stuff to monkey around with computers, guitar, whatever the case may be, right? Um, there's a lot of people that had a lot more, right? They have tons of shit to play with, right? But don't do as much as you did, with what you had.
Mhm.
And there's this idea where it's just something that I've noticed that if your parents, depending on how you grew up, if your parents were, conservative Republican, then probably you're going to be a Democrat for a while just to go against what your parents, because you
Mhm.
don't want to be like your parents because they were the ones that, pissed you off your
You're
whole
fucking
life.
squares, man.
Right, exactly. And then maybe at some point in time you end up coming to this middle ground, and that all depends on timing and society, how everything is going and how you guys feel and everything else. But for the majority of it, I would say there's this ratio of like, they come together and either one of them goes one way or but both of them will end up going in whatever direction they both feel given the certain circumstances of time and politics and the nature of politics and region and everything else. But anyway, um, but there's always this backlash. There's always this backlash of, if I grew up with death metal and I tried to get my kid into death metal and just fed him death metal all the time, right? And I mean, just hardcore death metal. By the time they're 18, they're going to be like, oh, I had never heard 99 Luftballons.
Yeah.
And they're going to be like
No, they
Gangs of the
know.
Bangle.
Finish.
Yeah, they're going to end up like an ABBA or something like that. So the more that the government fucks with you, and it's the same thing with science with this muon particle and everything else. So that this idea, this philosophy I was trying to get in was the more you press and poke and fuck with something and try and get it unnatural, the more the universe is like, yo, bro, pull it
Oh,
back.
dude, actually, you know what? It's a funny thing you mentioned that because I had this thought the other day that I wrote it down. It was, I don't know, a couple days ago.
Hmm.
And I was just saying, uh, messing with nature is like over mixing a tune. The more you fuck with it, the more bland it becomes.
Hmm.
And that's
Mm.
what, when you really start
Yeah,
fucking to try to recreate nature, like,
right.
trying to
Perfect in
it
your
just
own
becomes more and
way.
more bland. You're actually
Yeah.
you're losing the uniqueness,
Yep.
the natural order of, so I
Right.
mean, when they start cloning shit and getting, when we get to that point, replicators and things like that, like
Mhm.
that's gonna be fucking
Bonkers.
crazy, man.
Right.
Crazy times,
But
is that,
you.
in this reality, it doesn't exist yet, but who's to say that we don't start crossing realities? We don't start seeing other realities. I mean,
You want to know? You want to know what's jacked up? I
mm,
just had a conversation with the dude who was the first man to ever clone an embryo and
mhm,
then clone a human.
mm,
I just on my way home. Yeah, I had
mhm,
a conversation. It sounds like a bold statement. I have told you that the wife and I are trying to have a baby. Well, that's what this guy does, and he's very accessible. So I was like, well,
mhm.
hell with it, I'll call him. Luckily enough, the guy was like, it's 4 o'clock. I was on my way home from work to get here home a little early and do this, and it just weird the way the universe works, right?
Mhm.
He goes, he's got a really weird accent. I don't know where he's from, but he's a professor. This dude is just
Weirdsville,
he's yeah,
Pennsylvania.
yeah, he's from Kentucky. He's from Kentucky.
Weirds from
But
Kentucky.
no, yeah. So he's weird, and he likes bourbon. Good on him. No, but a very interesting guy. Very interesting guy for the little amount of time we had been chatting. But you know, this guy's like, it's fruitious that you call me now, and I'm like, why is that? He goes, I let the whole staff out early because it's super nice today.
Mhm.
So it's 4 o'clock and I'm answering my own phones. Normally, you wouldn't get to talk to me because
Oh,
I'd
wow.
charge you. He's like, because I charge you. And I ended up having a 20-minute conversation with this guy just about, um, basically reproduction and cool stuff and the science he had belonged to and the fact that he wrote the first paper regarding smoking as it pertains to reproductive health that destroyed the majority of the smoking industry, especially in Kentucky and everything else. It was a really cool conversation, but he's like on the cutting edge of science in his
Mhm.
field and clones, like you just said, and all that jazz. And his friend is the first guy to clone the goat, you know, to clone a goat or a sheep.
Hey,
Uh,
hey, you goat cloner. Get over here. I
Come
want to talk to you.
come here, come here,
Goat cloner. Get over here.
get over here. So yeah, it was actually really interesting, but it's weird how like some of these these scientists are ridiculously accessible and
Well,
b
how they
super cool
blind you
facts.
with science. They blinded me with science.
So
On that note, dude, we
yeah,
should probably
we
wrap
gotta
her on
get
up
ready.
because
Yeah,
yeah, we got to get rocking. Once again, this is Son of the Govern.
I didn't even get to say that once. What's the date today? It's April 8th.
Oh, it's
It is
April 8th.
April. It is April 8th. Yeah. You know what that means? It's almost your birthday.
Oh fuck. Good old
So
39. Here we come.
oh shit, dog. It's your last birthday you ever gonna have. If you're a bet. Mm,
Fuck you.
I
Fuck
age
you.
I age like Sean Connery. Look at this.
Fuck you.